Hey there, I'm Dominic St-Pierre, and you're listening to Go Podcast. Today I will be talking about databases. Hello, Gophers! So yeah, I took a small break, and it's kind of crazy for me at the moment at the consulting side of my life. I'm sure lots of you might relate to that, but enough about me. I wanted to restart and frequently post on this podcast. And the topic I would like to talk about today is regarding the databases. I am seeing a lot of comments. I don't know if you're like me, but I'm feeling a little bit like Go is expanding these days. I would say, maybe I would dare say that since the apparition of the generics, maybe. Well, it was started before that, of course. But point is, I'm seeing lots of new developers coming from other languages and whatnot that seems to be interested in Go, and this is great. This is nice. I would like to talk a little bit about databases, like I was saying. This is a topic that, just like error handling, to me, I would bucket them into the same thing. So they are kind of different, I would say. Probably the right word here, and and when we say different in Go, we usually say, more verbose than your typical experience you might have had with other languages. So that's what we will talk about today. Maybe I can start by sharing a true story or real world story of mine. I started writing Go in 2014. So basically, I was building a SaaS called LeadFuse. I was CTO at LeadFuse. I needed to build the thing. I built it in Node.js at first. For lots of reasons that I won't go in detail here. That's not the point. And one day, I discovered Go sometimes in 2014, and one day I woke up and I was having so many issues with Node. Well, yeah, the goal is not to detail what were they exactly. The point is, I woke up one day and I said, I want to use this thing. It seems to be interesting. Go might be solving lots of issues that I am having with Node. So I started by writing the database aspect of it and putting a very, very simple API in front of it. So that was my first project in Go was imagine a simple API with some code that access a database that expose JSON payload, for example. And I started to write the code. I used nothing else but database/SQL, the standard library packages. And it crossed my mind at some point that was saying, wow, I am repeating a lot of code here. But it was not terrible. It was not the issue, because I was testing it at the same time, and it's at that time that I understood that Go will never hide anything from me. I mean, as a programmer, Go will always be as simple as it can get. Compared to, I was coming from .NET. I think it's not a surprise. I'm talking about a lot about .NET, and their famous ORM there, Entity Framework, or prior to that, Link to SQL. I like those. We will come back to that. But let's continue my story. So it took me about, I would say, 3 days, maybe 4 max, to rewrite the entire database access layer, if you will, in Go. And I was not knowing the language much. I just played with it to learn. So when I learn a new language, I typically just do some very, very small project and whatnot. So that was the real thing that we're supposed to go into production. The nice thing about building SaaS and being a small team, well, you have lots of decisions. So I put that into production very, very quickly, and it was a life-changing thing for me at the moment, because I understood that Go will be there for me. And even though I found it very repetitive, it was not terrible, because in my opinion, for me, one of my skills is SQL. I've been working at a credit agency for all my life as an employee and as a consultant after that, and data is really what they are selling. So to me, writing SQL is as fluent as any, as writing Go, for example. So I was not disturbed by the fact that it was repetitive and that the SQL was kind of raw in the database SQL. In fact, I would go as far as saying that it was what I like, because I mean it brings it brings some control and whatnot that I did not really add previous to that, due to using an ORM. So that's the story. But I think we can start to go from there, and this is the basis of what I want to talk today. So if I put myself in the shoes of someone that is coming to Go, or someone that needs to take a decision regarding how will we as a team or a company, whatever, will we access the database, for example, I can understand that, programmers coming from Ruby on Rails or Python or, Java, .NET, even Elixir, for example, where the ORM is the king, if I can say that. There's other way in .NET and Java, of course, to connect straight to the database and do whatever you want. But I think the majority are using the ORM way, and I can understand that this might, this is a baggage that those programmers are coming to Go, and they want to use an ORM. So there's GORM. So if you want to use an ORM, forcibly, or that is one. I would still be careful. I would still run a lot of scenarios before taking this decision. I would still pick probably the 5 more complex query, and if you are working on an existing system, it might be easier for you to find those. But there's always at least 5 queries in an application that give ORM a small difficulties. And I'm not talking about just inner joining other tables here. I'm talking about advanced SQL queries. And of course, you can always write those without the ORM. So that's an option. I mean, it's an option. Personally, when I look at the code, when I read the code that use GORM as an example, and I'm not bashing on Gorm at all. But to me, I don't find it very readable. It's probably just an opinion here. But that project exists and it seems to be good. I mean, lots of people are using it. I never did, because to me, I want to stay in SQL. So that was my main point. That is my main point of this episode. That I seriously believe that all programmers would benefit to master SQL as as the language to query the databases. It's mostly compatible from Postgres to MySQL to MS SQL Server to all the SQL base server. So of course the vendor have their own functions and whatnot, but I mean this is not a huge learning curve compared to. So my point is, when you are using an ORM, and this is my vision, I mean this is my opinion here, you are not really exercising the skills of SQL. So what happens if you are getting a job at some point and you are in need of doing a lot of SQL queries by hand, just because, or just to create some reporting and whatnot for employees or user or clients, whatever. Sometimes you're not. Sometimes you don't really have the comfort of using a programming language to do those things in enterprise, in companies. So to me, SQL is still a very valuable skills to have, because once you have it, then you can well, first of all, you can create much better performant queries as well. So it's. I did not really want it to go there, but yeah, the ORM aspect makes it difficult sometimes to optimize queries and whatnot, because when you are in need of optimizing your queries, you're better off being playing with your raw SQL, trying to see the execution plan of the queries and see where are those tables scanned, and where are all where the execution is would need your attention. What can you do to improve that performance? So that's mainly why I personally I tend to not use ORM. The next option in the chain, if you will. So we start with the fact that you can use database SQL, the standard library package. You can go all the other way using an ORM. So after that, I would say the next decision is are the team is going to use SQLX. So SQLX is a small library that will help with the scanning of the rows into a struct. So that is what I think is where people have the most aversion for using the database SQL, is that when you are doing a select, even either one row or multiple rows, you will probably want to have your rows turned into a struct. So let's say you have a table called, I don't know, a person, for example. So you might have a person struct with first name, last name, and email and whatnot. So those scans are generally a bit tedious to do, I will admit. So it's not the nicest code to write, and SQLX will remove that from you. So it's basically a library that that will turn your result into struct without you having to write anything. But there's always a but. I mean, you are doing that at the expense of using reflection, and it's not terrible. I haven't done much benchmark, and it might be as quick. It might be a little bit slower. I don't even know. It's just that you need to know that it's there. So it's using reflection. So it's examining your struct, trying to match the fields from the queries, and trying to do that. So again, and the code that you will use to call those queries, you need to do some testing, because you are chaining a lot of you are chaining a lot of functions from SQLX. Let's say you want to select some things, you want to do a queries, you want to order. So again, for code readability, and being a blind person myself, readability is extremely important. So I'm always coming back to that. But maybe it's just me. I don't know. To me, I prefer to have my database code into packages that are extremely well defined, and not only that, but reusable. Would you be able to do that with SQLX? Of course. But what I tend to see a little bit is that, since it's mostly one-liner-ish, and one-liner meaning that you will probably exceed the 80 character line limit very quickly. But my point is, by the virtue of the fact that SQLX lets you write one-liner, it might be tempting to just skip the sub packages for your data model, and well, it's just harder to reuse them. So yeah, it's another option that exists. It works well. I use it once for a quick project. To me, it's still not the answer. It does not really. It brings other issues, other small things that makes me think, well, okay, I understand that database SQL is verbose and whatnot, but to me, this is not fixing the problem. The last thing I will talk about here is SQL Boiler, which the idea of this tool is that it will start from an existing database and generates code for you. So let's say you have a database. Let's say you have multiple tables in there. So you use this tool. This tool check your schema, check your table names, column names, and will create some codes using the database SQL for you. So it will create the scans. It will create everything. So that's a good option. That's an interesting option. It certainly prevents you from having to write a lot of codes, and it's there. If you have an existing database, that is. So I've used it once. In fact, I tried to use it. It did not really work for me. So I'm not a fan of code generation. And again, I mean, I'm getting old, and I think I have some. Yeah, I know what I want, and I don't want code generation. I've been bitten by code generation in the past, and it's not, again, I just like SQLX. To me, I don't feel like it's really fixing the problem. It's not. because if the tool is writing the code, I would still probably prefer to write it myself. So that's mainly my main point regarding SQL Boiler, is that I did it with LeadFuse with an existing database. I wrote all the code. It took me 4 days. And after that, this package lasts forever. You never touch that again. And when you add a new column, you have maybe 3 or 4 lines of code to change on your on your Go file, and that's it. So it's there. It's probably a good option. I think I'm not very familiar with it because, like I said, I tried to use it. It did not really work for me. But it's there. So at the end of the day, what I'm doing myself is that I tried to understand what is the exact problem with database SQL. What do I don't really like myself? And to me, it was just the repetitive aspect of, querying a database, checking for error, looping over the rows and turning that into the struct. The structure of the code that needs to be written for just a select. So what I did, I just created myself some snippet of code that handle the CRUD aspect of a database. So when I'm on my code editor, I do something like db create tab, and this expand my snippet, and now I have all the code written for me. So personally, I find it a little bit like having SQL Boiler in a sense, but having total control of what is written. So I have that for all the major, like I was saying, the CRUD operation. And it seems to be making the fact that it's verbose pass a little bit. It's less of an issue. Of course, when you are looking at your code after, and you are looking a lot of repetition, but I always see my data packages as being, write once and use forever, because your database will not change at some point. Of course, in the first 2, 3, 4 years of a project, the database is changing a lot. I'm used to maintain very old application. So when you are maintaining an older application, let's say 5 years, your database is pretty much good. You are solving the problem that you are supposed to solve. The data model that is used for that. So the database is not changing a lot. So those packages will be there. And if you use TDD, for example, you have a pretty solid database access code that will stay with you. And like I was saying, what I like is the fact that I can reuse that into multiple other projects. So that becomes like a company library. This is the library for database X, and programmers have nice function name. Let's say product.add, so product being the package, .add being add the add function or create or whatever. So you could have multiple functions that are meaningful for programmers, that that will connect to the database, run it. They might be running extremely complex queries, for example, and the user of that library does not need to know about it. And if they want to change it, then they look at the code. The SQL is there. They can grab the SQL code, and they can optimize it. They can run it manually. To me, this is this is working better than trying to fix the problem, which I'm not even sure what it is, other than it's a lot of code, it's a lot of repetition, and scans are not fun to write. But let's be honest. Sometimes you need to write boring code to have a good system and something that will be there, because I am maintaining 20 years old software, and where, I've said that before on the podcast, I don't want to repeat myself, but they were using an old ORM that is not supported anymore. So, I mean, yeah, it's a decision that to me is a no-brainer. I really, really enjoy using the bare metal for my database SQL. And just before closing it, I have very, very old .NET application that I'm still maintaining, part of my consulting, that were using SQL connection and SQL query data adapter and whatnot. So they were not using the ORM, and those programs are still working, A1 today, and they were very easy to migrate as well. So yeah, it's a decision. If you want to use an ORM, use an ORM. If you want to use SQLX, go ahead. I mean, you will find your ways, and this is just my ways. This is my podcast. This is my ways. So personally, I like to just be bare metal. So, right, that's it for me. All right, that's it for this week. I hope you liked the episode. And again, if you can share and talk about the podcast, that would be extremely appreciated. Also, if you want to check my book out, I have a course named Build SaaS App in Go. So it's at buildsasappingo.com. All right, see you in 2 weeks. Bye.